Howdy folks, welcome back to Doing Brew. This is video 8 of the complete kitchen remodel series, and in this video we're going to cover cutting in and rolling on our final top coat of paint. Also at the end of the video we'll cover the continuation of electrical. In this case, wiring some GFCI outlets, but the first thing we have to do is put our final coat, in this case 2 coats of paint, on our wall. And step 1 is cutting in the inside corners, outside corners, and the intersection between the walls and the ceiling. In my opinion, the trick to doing a good cut-in job is not completely saturating your brush. You just want to dip in the first half to 3/4 of an inch. Trust me, the paint will soak into the brush, but this will give you a whole lot more control of the paint as it's applied to the wall, and it's going to limit the number of drips and sags you get in the paint. You certainly don't want to rush this by loading up your brush too much and getting a bunch of drips on your brand new drywall. Now I will acknowledge that a lot of the techniques I'm going to show you here are nearly identical to the techniques that I showed you in the priming video, which is video number 7. But this is a complete kitchen remodel series, and I don't want to skip any step in the process of completely gutting and rebuilding this kitchen. You'll notice that as I cut in this inside corner, I get a nice even coat, and then I completely distribute that coat and begin to kind of feather out the outside edge. This is really important because you don't want a ridge line when you go to roll on your paint. You don't want to see that line where you cut in the corner. Here up in this corner, you can see I'm more pushing the paint than I am painting with the brush and dragging the brush across the wall. Using this technique, it's really important to have only about a 1/2 inch of the end of the brush dipped in the paint can, and then control that push of paint up into the corner. But as you can see, no tape is required, and by controlling the amount of paint on the brush and pushing that paint up to the line you want to make, and you'll see me on a number of occasions where I'll adjust the brush a number of times sometimes until I get that right bead of paint that I can push up into that corner. Now I found over the years that if you have fresh paint on a wall, or in this case the ceiling, and you apply blue painter's tape, the unfortunate occurrence of pulling off that tape along with some of your fresh paint is bound to happen. You can see just taking your time, and I don't have the steadiest of hands, folks, but just taking your time and easing that paint up to that intersection right where you need it, you can get a really nice straight line. And then I'll feather that paint out so I don't have any noticeable lines once we begin to roll. And Alex is going to go ahead and demonstrate the proper technique of putting paint on the wall using the W technique. You can see he started with a loaded roller on the left side. Using the W technique, distributed that paint over about a 4-foot area, left and right, and then he went back with a loaded roller and began on the right side and then filled in. This ensures you get the most equal distribution of paint, nice even coverage, no roller lines or lap marks, and when it sets up and dries, it's a real nice uniform coverage of paint. I've been using the W technique for 30 years and it hasn't let me down yet. While Alex continues to roll on paint, I'm going to continue to try and stay one step ahead of him and cut in along the ceiling line. And of course, we're listening to the music of Western blues singer-songwriter Jonivan Jones. There will be a link to Jonivan's music as well as his YouTube channel in the description.
I keep seeing this all the end. That's just a tightrope in the wind. Yeah. Pretty bad.
And I can just about get all the cutting in along this ceiling except for this one little corner. I just can't get that large brush up there. I'll go back with a craft brush, a very small brush, and fill in that tiny little area. That's easy to do, no big deal. And we're just about done with our first coat of gray paint. And of course, a second coat will follow after about 4 to 5 hours.
Get back.
Okay, we're just about done with coat number 1 of 2 coats of this gray top coat on these walls. I'll finish out with a time lapse of the 4th and final wall. And I really am excited to see how this gray paint really makes our white cabinets and granite countertops pop. Pretty excited to see that. Let's move on to do some electrical. First thing we got to do is secure the circuit breakers feeding power to the circuits we're going to be working. But before we work on these wires, I'm going to check with my circuit tester to ensure that in fact there is no power going to these wires, and this confirms that we're safe to work on these. These circuit testers really give you peace of mind when you're working on electrical lines, and they only cost about 20 bucks. That's well worth it in my book. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to buy one for yourself. Here at this outlet box, we're going to be wiring up a GFCI protected outlet. First thing we have to do is strip back the insulation on the wire providing power to the outlet. When we do that, we're going to find 3 wires: a black hot wire, a white neutral wire, and a bare ground wire. After we've separated those wires, we want to strip back the insulation to allow us to make the connection. I'll use my needle nose pliers to bend the end of the wire into a little U shape or a hook shape. That makes it real easy to wrap it around the screw or terminal post on the outlet before you tighten it down. You can see how the screw would fit right in that little hook. Okay, here's our GFCI protected outlet. Now, the top screws are for power coming into the outlet, the hot wires coming in. The bottom are protected by this yellow caution tape, and that's just to ensure that you don't inadvertently connect the hot wires to that lower portion. The lower portion that was previously covered by that yellow tape is where you connect the wires that feed any outlets downstream from this GFCI protected outlet. Now, you can hook up a number of outlets going downstream, and they don't have to be the expensive GFCI outlets. They can be normal outlets, but because they're connected and through and receive their power from this GFCI protected outlet, those outlets downstream are protected as well. It's a good way to save a little bit of money. Now, previously I referenced the hot wires, plural. Now what I mean by that is the wires coming from your circuit breaker panel, which is the black or hot wire, the white neutral wire, and the ground wire. Those are the wires delivering power to your outlet. And then the wires coming off of this outlet supply power to outlets further downstream, if you will, and they are also protected off of this GFCI outlet. Now, we're going to give it a quick check. I'm going to plug in our plug circuit checker. This ensures that it's wired correctly. The two lights on the right showing yellow indicate that it's wired correctly. When I push this button, it simulates a fault and secures the outlet. The way a safety feature in a GFCI outlet works is it continually monitors the balance of power between the hot and the neutral line. If there's an imbalance of 7 milliamps, it will secure power to that outlet. And the idea here is, as in kitchens or bathrooms or outside where there might be water present, if you get grounded and there's an imbalance of 7 milliamps, it's going to secure power to that outlet and potentially save your life. Next up, we're going to wire up a normal outlet that you'd have anywhere else in the house, but because it's downstream from the GFCI outlet, it too will be protected. I'm going to go through the same process here of using my needle nose pliers to bend over the ends of the black or hot wire, the white or neutral wire, as well as the bare ground wire. As far as right side up or upside down, there's no wrong or right way to install an outlet. Typically, you'll see an outlet installed with the slots on top and a little hole for the grounding receptacle on the bottom, as you see me installing this one. Now, in that orientation, the black wire is going to connect to the right side, or the copper, kind of gold colored screw, while the white wire, the neutral wire, is going to connect on the left side to a silver colored screw, and the grounding wire, the bare wire, connects to a green screw that's typically on the bottom of the receptacle. Then we're going to push all that into the wall, secure it into the electrical box, and we're about done with this install of 2 GFCI protected outlets while only using 1 GFCI outlet. I'm going to plug my circuit tester in here. If I get 2 yellow lights, there they are. That indicates that this receptacle is wired correctly. These 2 circuit testers are really handy to have, and they give you good peace of mind that you've done the work correctly. I'll put a link to these also in the description if you want to check it out. With the installation of these 2 cover plates, and Alex is finishing out the install of the dedicated refrigerator outlet, we are done with video 8, folks. Coming up in the next video, video 9 of the complete kitchen remodel series, we're going to completely tile the kitchen with a beautiful gray large format tile. We'll let that set up overnight and then we'll grout it. That's coming up in video 9. It's hard to believe that Do and Brew launched its first video almost 3 years ago. And yeah, since then, we've really been operating on a shoestring budget. But we recently launched our Patreon site. Rest assured that 100% of all donated funds will go directly towards more professional video equipment, sound equipment, and video editing equipment, all with the goal of providing you all much higher quality videos and more of them. And a huge shout out to our newest Patreon supporter, Jose Sanchez. Jose, thanks a lot for the support. It is greatly appreciated. And as I mentioned in the previous video, this is Do and Brew's next big project, the whole house remodel inside and out of this beautiful and historic 1830s brick farmhouse. Almost every inch of this nearly 7,000 square foot home needs to be renovated. The entire house needs to be replumbed. In the process, we're going to build 2 new bathrooms. The flooring, the wall coverings, all need repair. Incredibly, portions of the original slate roof are still in place, but are in need of repair. Every baseboard, door, and window molding need to be stripped, primed, sanded, and repainted. There's even a servant's quarters dating back nearly 200 years on the property that's in significant distress. In fact, one wall is nearing collapse. Big Dill in a future video is going to give everyone a tour of every room of this house, including the basement and the attic, which are amazing to see. There's a lot of great stuff to come on Do and Brew, so I hope you do consider subscribing, and I hope you check out our Patreon site. Well, that'll bring this episode of Do and Brew to a close. Thanks a lot for checking out this video, folks. Video 9, the tiling video, will be posted soon. I hope to see you back here again next time on Do and Brew. Take care, folks.